Now, I refer to myself as a professional survivor because I survived very strict parents at home, very strict teachers in school, naturally the vacation place at the concentration camps, and there were a few of them, starting with Auschwitz and finishing with Dachau. And naturally came here. I was pleasantly surprised by being selected to come to the United States. And in the United States, after I filled out my first papers, the intentions for citizenship, after I filled them up a few months later, I got an invitation from the United States government signed by the president, at that time, Harry S. Truman, that I am being invited to serve in the army wherever they will send me. At that time, since I was living in South Carolina, I got drafted in South Carolina in Fort Jackson, which is about 5 minutes outside of the town. I got drafted over there as a regular G.I. Joe, and over there you go through the very basic of the basics, and after a little while of the basic, they decided to take a certain group of people they picked out, and I was among them, to ship us out to Camp Polk, Louisiana. And in Louisiana, they attached us to a new division. This is a National Guard division from Oklahoma, the 45th Infantry Division, which is also referred as the Thunderbird Division. In other words, when they take into the Army a National Guard division, they actually taking the skeleton of the division, and then they fill it with a bunch of draftees. Now, in this particular case, I came to Camp Polk, Louisiana, which there was a lot of mud, misery, and all kinds of other stuff. It is not the nicest place under the sun, but over there we're supposed to have the very basic of the basic of training. Now, the basic training was the first thing the lieutenant showed us to start with a little, approximately maybe 12-inch long jar, and in the jar there was a little snake, a beautiful little snake, red, white, red, white, red, white. It's called coral snake, which is considered one of the most poisonous things. And this was in alcohol, naturally, and he explained to us that if one of those things bites you, you just have enough time to bend over backwards and kiss yourself goodbye. So after he showed us all those things, he says, tomorrow we're going into the field for basic training. Well, the basic training did not happen the following day because it started to rain cats and dogs. So the lieutenant says to our group, he says, since it's raining so hard, I think we will go to that big room over there and I will show you a movie. A movie how to take apart a rifle and about VD and all those other things that can happen in the army. I was not exactly proficient in English, but I learned reasonably fast. After he decided to show us the movie, he tries to turn on the projector. To my good luck, the projector dropped dead. It didn't want to work. So I went to him. I said, Lieutenant, sir, would you mind if I help you and make this thing work? He says, what do you know about it? I say, in Europe, I used to do this for a living because after the war, I used to work for the UNRWA, United Nations Relief and Rehabilitation, and my job was going to different displaced person camps and show movies as entertainment for the people. So he says, "Can you fix it?" I fixed it up, and sure enough, it's running. So the next thing he says, "You want to run the damn thing?" I say, "I'd be glad to." And I didn't have to go over there to see the armadillos and all those other miserable-looking things that I never saw before. So I worked over there till finally one nice day after we progressed with the basic training, they assigned us to individual companies or to the individual battalions, and they decided that of all the people, I had to learn Morse code. Now, Morse code in the Army, you learn 5-letter groups at 18 minutes, 18 words a minute. A word is five-letter group, because everything goes in code, and later on, once the other people received it, they putting it through a machine and decoded it, and they know what it's all about. So I had to sit over there 8 hours a day till I finally mastered the sending and the receiving, particularly the receiving of the 5-letter group in Morse code. Afterwards, after we finished our basic training, we had naturally had the first time that we could go out on pass. But they told us, the officers told us, that anybody that wants a pass, besides looking nice and neat and presentable, you have to make sure that you are nice and neat and cleanly shaven or taken care of in the back of your head. I went the first time to Alexandria. That's a little piddly town with a bunch of shacks. And over there I discovered something. You know, I received my first buck private's pay, which was $70. And I came over there and I discovered a little machine that you pull the arm, you put money into it, and you pull the arm, and sometimes it pays back. With my luck, I didn't even buy myself no toothpaste, no soap, no nothing in the PX. I lost every penny of my money into that thing. They used to call it a one-armed bandit. I never saw one of those things, but I quickly discovered that this is not the thing for me. And I also discovered that $70 doesn't take me too far. So I had a bright idea. Since there were just so many barbers and everybody wants to go on pass, and not everybody could get his hair in the back nice and neat, with my second $70, I went to one of the stores and I bought myself a pair of clippers, scissors, and a comb. And I came back to the barracks, and I told the guys that anybody that wants a haircut, he has to go to the latrine and turn around backwards. And I used to cut hair, 50 cents a head. And I made myself a reasonably decent income. Naturally, I made also sure that I got away religiously from that one-armed bandit, because I did not want to get out naked out of the place. So we were there, and we were training in a variety of things, whatever they indicated. And then, generally in the Army, everything is top secret. Anything you start is top secret. But in case if you want to know what's going on in the Army, you listen to the letters that come to the soldiers from home. The people at home knew more than we do. And they told us, they said that they heard the rumor that the 45th Division from Louisiana is being shipped out overseas. So we knew they picked us up one nice day. Everybody had to fall in. And they loaded us up into a big ship. And we went through Panama Canal to, first of all, San Francisco. In San Francisco, they loaded us up with additional troops, so that the ship actually was overloaded because we had about 4,000 troops on the ship. And we're supposed to go overseas. We didn't know where we're going. We knew that we're going to the Far East someplace. And once we got shipped out and we chugged along, I discovered that because there were so many people and there was not enough space on the ship to exercise, they decided to cut our rations to 2 meals a day, because otherwise we get too fat over there and we will be useless as soldiers. So they loaded us up, and I found out that they were looking for people who show movies while we are on the sea. So I went to one of the Navy guys and I told them I happen to be a projectionist and I also happen to be a serviceman for this equipment. So I was lucky. They selected me as a projectionist for the officers in the officers' lounge. And during the day, I had to repair torn films or broken projectors, whatever. It happened to have been a little cubicle in the center of the ship, which was my good luck, because in the center, the movement of the ship up and down, and it makes you very seasick. In the center, this happens very minimally, so I was doing rather good. The advantage also that I had is that they explained to me that the most important person is going to sit right behind me, and this is the captain of the ship, that he is the Almighty God. When he tells you to jump, you say how high and when to jump down. He is the boss. So I made a deal that the guys who used to come in from the side doors, and they tried to sneak in on the movies to see what the movies are for the officers. So I went to the guys, I said, listen, I'll make a deal with you because this is right near the kitchen. If you want to watch it, because this is off limits for enlisted personnel, if you want to watch it, you have to bring me a sandwich. And so I had myself a real good life. We were 2 weeks on the sea, and finally we came to Hokkaido, Japan. In Hokkaido, Japan, we were doing additional amphibious and a variety of other trainings that we had to know, so that in case if we need it, we have it. Incidentally, the radio stuff was radio silence. You don't use the radio so that the enemy cannot hear what's going on. And we were improving our training more and more, till all of a sudden somebody from North Dakota got a letter and he says, I have heard that the 40th Division, which is from California, got beaten all to pieces, because this was the time where this was the so-called police action. It was not called the Korean War yet. The people got beaten to pieces by the Chinese, so that they wiped out the 40th Division, and the 45th supposed to come to replace it. And sure enough, all of a sudden, we hear the rumors that the 45th is going to Korea to fight. Since I am basically not a very fighting man, and after what I went through, I just wanted to have, I didn't mind to serve, but I didn't mind to have my rear end shut off. So I have heard that there was a rumor that if you are the only surviving son in the family, you don't have to go to the front lines. So through the channels, I came to the commanding officer over there, and I told him about it. And he says, does anybody, your wife, your mother, your wife, your daughter, your sister, your brother, your father, your mother, does anybody alive? I say, no, everybody died in Auschwitz. I don't have nobody except myself. He says, this doesn't count, and you are going with the rest of the troops. So I came in like nobody's business over there, and I decided to do whatever. In the army, incidentally, you don't try to fight the army. You are much better off if you're rolling with the punches, because if you try to fight it, it's just not so good for you. So whatever I was doing, I tried to do the best that I could so that they keep me going. Now, one of the things that I discovered when we came into Korea is that twice a week in the company, so many troops, we were 8 or 9 guys with one officer, you're supposed to go on patrol duty. Now, during sometimes when we didn't know, the Chinese used to sneak in on our side. They used to dig out a hole about 8 feet deep, and they used to put in bamboo sticks with very sharp edges, with some junk on the top that when you fall in there and you get yourself banged up on those sharp edges, this is a very painful or sometimes deadly thing. So naturally, and this was camouflage so that you couldn't see it, because patrolling we did at night. I was not very happy about it, but I chugged along. I went once through it and I came back, and I didn't like it, but I came back. I didn't get scratched or nothing, and everything was going good. I came back from patrol. The captain of our company calls me in. He says, Cosmo, I would like to speak to you. He knew that I used to cut hair. He says, how about you and I will make a deal among ourselves? If you cut everybody's in the company hair, you don't have to go on patrol. So I said, can I think about it? I was a real wiseacre. Instead to shut up and say, take it and say thank you, I decided to think about it. The following morning, as soon as I left him, I realized that I made a mistake by being stupid. However, in the morning I got up and I went to the captain. I say, does the deal still stand? He says, yes. So, among other things that I had to do, I also had a job cutting hair of the troops in the headquarters company that I was a member of. And I was surviving rather well over there. In addition, they found out that, let's say, the 179th Regiment or even the 180th Regiment that I used to belong, because they used to, over there, things were being transported in the 6x6s, big trucks, and there's no fancy roads or such things. The projectors that they had to show movies occasionally to the troops got beaten all to pieces. Sometimes the tubes fell out or so. They found out that I do repair. So I had myself a nice sideline, and I used to make a survival out of that situation. And this is the way I was going along, and I was doing rather well. My job, my basic job, was on the OPLR. This is Observation Post Light Resistance. I supposed to sit with another guy, and we supposed to see the movement in the valley, what's going on or the enemy tries to sneak through. Now, we found out that although we had silence, radio silence, we found out that the Chinese particularly had a tendency to sneak into our telephone lines, wire in their wires, and they had one Chinaman who spoke a real good English. And he used to confuse our artillery so that the bullets were falling where they shouldn't. We came up with an idea that where we were, we could see the Company A and we could see what's going on. And they found out that there was nobody that could counterfeit my lousy accent. So I was really a valuable guy in there, because when I called in the artillery and I gave him the point where they're supposed to throw their bullets, they recognized that this is Roman, it's okay. And I was surviving over there doing whatever the heck was going on till the time that they told us, Luftgals, it's time for you to go for rotation. You know, the 2 years went up. So naturally, the time came where I gave up my rifle and I gave up my ammunition, and they loaded me on a ship and they shipped me to Sasebo, Japan. And in Sasebo, Japan, they loaded us up on a boat, and the boat shipped us all the way to San Francisco. In San Francisco, they loaded us up on an airplane, on a twin-engine DC-3, and we went to Midway, Chicago. To our misfortune, before we went on the plane, you know, you're going through hills and through mountains, so the plane flies at a certain level. All of a sudden, it drops a little bit. And since we just ate before we got loaded on the plane, I got seasick. I got very sick while I was in the plane. So the lady that was with us says, you know, if you go right, we have some oxygen, but the oxygen we have to save for people who direly need it. You don't need it that badly. If you want to, you can put your nose right over there near the door, and there's a little bit fresh air coming through, and you can go over there, sniff it. P.S. I survived. And I have discovered that when we arrived in Midway, Chicago, we arrived on one engine dropped dead. After they fixed it and after they took care of whatever it was necessary, from there they took us all the way to Philadelphia, because in the meantime, I got a letter from a guy that was liberated with me from the camp, and he lived in Hartford, Connecticut. So he says, Roman, when the time comes that you're coming home, it would be a good idea that rather going to that godforsaken place over there in South Carolina, why don't you come to Hartford, Connecticut? I never knew where Hartford, Connecticut was. But I came to Hartford. I came first of all to Camp Kilmer from whatever the heck it is in the east. We came to Camp Kilmer. They give you a ticket, and they give you $300 mustering outpay. And I came to Hartford. In Hartford, I was 27 years old at that time. All of a sudden, I got sick and tired being single. And I went scrounging around looking for some girl to latch on and maybe to get married. Well, I was fortunate and I found a girl who is still my bride 60 years later. I went to school and I learned how to manufacture kit. I had 3 kids, of which one of them died of cancer, unfortunately. And here, to start with, I used to work as a welder. Then I learned how to be a salesman, and I opened a photographic store in Hartford. And I was working in here till finally at 70 years old I had to retire because my ticker was getting on the bomb, so they had to fix it. So at this time I can simply say I am very glad and proud that I could do something for the United States in return for them to let me come into the United States and start a new life. So here I am, and I'm glad that I'm still alive and I'm able to tell you. And if there's any questions that you have, I will be glad to answer them for you. Thank you very much.
I do have a few questions. Would you be comfortable telling me about your time in the concentration camps? Or how you ended up there?
It is, well, the situation is like this. Since I am a member of the Old Testament, or Jewish, if you pardon my English, the Germans came in on one day, and about 20 minutes later they were there. They were right there, and at that time there was no SS. There were SA, the guys with the brown shirts, not with the gray shirts. And naturally they started to antagonize the people of the Jewish religion. I had a chance to go to the gymnasium or the high school. You couldn't do it. You had extreme difficulty to survive. From home, they chased us out after a few weeks to a place that they decided that this would be a ghetto. They found a room over there, at a house with 2 rooms. In one room was living my father, my mother, my brother, and I, my aunts, 3 aunts, and my grandmother. The grandfather was not alive anymore. And in the other room, in the kitchen, there was living also a lady whose husband was drafted to the Polish army, but he never made it. He got shot like in the first few days because the Polish were not prepared to handle an army like the Germans. He got shot, so we tried to make the living the best way we could. Finally, one nice day, they told us, all of us, this is in Shakova, was 1,800 Jewish people over there. Right now there's left over probably worldwide about maybe 12 people. The rest of it, or they died from old age, or most of them died in the concentration camps, because the first thing, they took us and they put us in a train, and from the train, from my hometown to Auschwitz, the famous place, was approximately 30 kilometers, about 18 miles. We came over there, and over there they took my mother and my father and my brother and everybody, and they sorted me out to go to the left, and they went to the right. I wanted to go with them. So the guy with the big cow whip pushed over me. He says, come over here. So I went to this line. Obviously, all the people that were over there had to undress and supposed to go to a shower room. The shower room was really a gas chamber. Instead water, the gas came out and killed them. And then there were special inmates that their job was to pull any gold teeth or women's hair, take it off or something like this. They went later on to the crematory, and they went through the chimney. That's how come when I came here, I was just me and myself. As a matter of fact, when I came out in the camp, obviously I don't have to tell you the horrors and all those things about it. It is not of the really important. It's related to the overall situation. But when the day came that I got liberated, the Germans ran away and they left us alone. I went outside and all I had is my blue and gray striped uniform full of lice. And I stood, and the first thing that I had a big idea is, in order for me to survive, I would like to go to America. But to go to America, it was out of question because the quota was very limited and very restricted. So I figured from there I maybe will wind up in a place like Canada. If I don't make it to Canada, maybe I'll go to Cuba. This is BC, before Castro. And in the meantime, I found out that there was an outfit over there, a outfit called Ord, that used to take if you wanted any kind of a profession, you go to them and they will assign you to the Germans, and the Germans will teach you the profession. This is after the war already, in the American zone. So I learned from the Germans a few things very important. Before I came to America, obviously, I went through training of learning a profession, because my idea was, I knew that I will not stay in Germany or in Poland. But wherever I go, I have to be sellable. I have to be useful to some people, whoever it is. So naturally, first of all, I learned how to be a welder, then I learned how to be an auto mechanic and sheet metal mechanic, and then I learned, in addition, since I like to do things with my hands, at Rodenstock, which is a very fine optical company, how to assemble and auto-collimate large format cameras. And I was working over there, and little did I know that this is the thing that made me survive. And I was very happy with it. And when I came in Munich, I found out that I couldn't find a job. So outside of Munich, I found out that there was a place run by the UNRWA. This is United Nations Relief and Rehabilitation Center. I came to them and I asked them, in German naturally, do you need a mechanic? They say yes, we'd be glad to. So I went over there and I worked. This way I used to get cigarettes. At that time I used to smoke. And they gave me some food and whatever the heck it was, and I was surviving. One nice day, the guy came in to pick up his car, a big American guy with a fancy officer, and he speaks to me in Yiddish. Now, Yiddish is kind of a language which is an offbeat of German. He speaks to me Yiddish because he didn't know any other way. He was an American guy, but he was someplace from New York maybe or so. So I answered him in Yiddish also. He says, are you Jewish? I said, yes. He says, why don't you come over? He says, first of all, you did a good job and I'm very pleased with it. Because in Germany, wherever I learned, the first thing they taught you, and this is a thing that everybody should remember, whatever you're doing, you should be doing to the very best of your ability, just for the hell of it. And good enough is simply just not good enough. So that when I came to Hartford, for example, first of all, I was working for AC Hein here as a mechanic, and I found out that I will be a good mechanic, a very good mechanic, but I will die a grease monkey. So I heard about a place called Pratt & Whitney. So I went to Pratt & Whitney and I told them what my specialty is as a welder. So the guy says to me, before anything happens, I showed him the papers, the honorable discharge papers. He says, try to put on a bead of welding. And actually, welding, you judge like handwriting. You got a good handwriting or you got a lousy handwriting. After I put in a bead on it, he says, where the heck did you learn how to weld? I say, in Germany. He says, it's absolutely gorgeous. I think I'm going to put you on the second shift. This way you will get 10 cents an hour extra. So I said, fine, thank you very much. So then later on he looked through the blueprints, or I know how to read them and everything. He looked through the blueprints. Everything was all set. But all of a sudden he discovered, Roman, I'm sorry, I cannot take you. The reason? I had to be 5 years in the United States before I am a citizen. I still was not a citizen.
Was this before or after?
Although this is after the army, after everything. I got to be a citizen after being 5 years in the United States. So since I made up my mind to just get the heck out from the mechanics anyhow, I went to work for an outfit called Khan Electronics, and over there I worked as a welder. And of all the people, my mother-in-law, you know, as a welder, you come home, you stink to holy heavens. So naturally, after I washed up and I took a shower and I put on fresh clothes, she used to believe that if you would have a job that you wear a white shirt, this is the cat's meow. So I went and I applied to a discount house here in Hartford as a photographic salesman. They looked for a salesman. So I went over there and they hired me. I went over there Friday. They hired me and they said, so Saturday you should come to work. I came Saturday. I never was used to have so many people over there crawling all over you. But I survived. I survived and all as I split my pants on top of everything. But, you know, all the things, if it can happen, it will happen. I came home. At that time already I was married, mind you, because I used to do things were happening fast in a hurry. I said, my wife says, how did you do? I say, I hate it with a passion. I don't want to hear nothing about it. Since I was on sick leave because I was burned, I still had my job as a welder. I'm going to go back to welding. So my mother, with her woman's wisdom, says, Roman, you will do me a favor. Just please do me a favor. Work there for a week. If you work for a week and you don't like it, you do whatever you want. So I decided to have the final say-so in my family, which is yes, dear. I went on Monday. Naturally, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday was not as crazy as Saturday. And I got used to it. And I developed a photographic department which was second to none, to the extent that they were doing about $250,000 a year. So all of a sudden I had a pregnant idea. This is an idea that has little ones. I had an idea that if I am so good for them, maybe I can be good for myself. And I started up a photographic department, the Camera Bar, which is still around over there for almost 60 years now. And obviously later on I had to say, because of my heart and so on, when I was 70 years old, I sold it to one of my employees who still runs it, and he runs it very satisfactorily. And here I am. Did I bend your ears sufficiently?
Yes, you did. Thank you very much. Is there anything else you'd want to add before we finish up?
I would recommend, if it would be up to me, I would take every man that goes to high school, when he finishes, assuming that we don't have no wars, assuming he doesn't have, that there's no wars, I would recommend that every man, when he reaches 17 or 18 years old, he should go for 1 year to the army. He learns discipline, he learns order, he learns a system. And it makes you a better man. Over there, my English, which was practically non-existent, between being with the variety of people over there, be it from Washington State and Oregon and Oklahoma and all over creation, and South Carolina, which is a part of it by itself, and one of my most important teachers of English was Reader's Digest. I learned from there how to speak English because I went for a while to the night school over there in Columbia. But the English teacher over there was telling you stories about her husband's underwear or his pajamas or things like this. I figured after a day's work, I really don't need this kind of junk. I quit. So I am here right now, and I'm trying to do two things. First of all, I try to tell the people my story as far as living in the army, which is an experience, and it's an experience that, assuming that you handle yourself right, naturally, it's up to you. Assuming that you handle yourself right, you will grow up to be a better man. And naturally, I lecture at the university over there at the psychology department about my survival from the concentration camp, how average people, and particularly now with the situation being the way it is, how you can pick yourself up by your shoelaces and make a human being of yourself. And after being married 60 years, I'm proud of it that I got between the children and the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren. I have 19 or 20 of them, I think. I already lost count, but it's not my fault anyhow. But I survived, and I am proud of it, and I'm proud being an American.
Thank you very much for telling me your story, and thank you for your service.